Alright, so does everyone know what magic mushrooms are? Put your hands up if you don't know. Yeah, okay, I kind of thought it would be like a preaching to the choir sort of thing. I'm just going to start by giving a description of them, right? So magic mushrooms is like a popular term for psilocybin mushrooms, right? That come from the family of mushrooms called Psilocybin. And they have a very interesting relation to our history. These peculiar little fungi have been a part of many different important elements of our journey as human beings, whether they be in our personal lives, as I'm sure many of you have experienced, the type of changes that you go through after your first mushroom journey, or the type of changes that you go through when you start to really understand what it's showing you and teaching you and integrating it when you learn how to work with that. And it's been present in the evolution of psychiatry, in the story of psychiatry, when they started, in the 40s, they discovered mescaline and started to see how massive that could change perception, and then they really kind of ushered off the field of psychopharmacology. And then from working with psychedelics during the 50s and 60s, really started psychiatry and psychotherapy using medicines until they completely criminalized and demonized all types of psychedelics for political reasons. And it's present in the evolution of our culture, these plants, these substances, where we see like a big change in the way a person interacts with their world after they've had these types of experiences, and a big change in the type of communities we create when we all have an underlying kind of common denominator, which is an experience of like the deep, emotional potential that is resting just below our conscious awareness at any given time, ready to be, picked when ripe and brought to ripen through the use of some medicine or some practice. They might have even been a part of what has made us human from the African grasslands of our pre-evolutionary states, from coming out of the canopy and picking new food sources off the ground and finding these strange-looking plants and eating them, and having them maybe be the reason why the human brain, went through the most rapid-paced evolutionary development in a short period of time that our intelligence has ever been able to mark through science or through history. They might have been what helped us develop language and a sense of culture. So these things have really embedded themselves really deeply in our story as human beings. And if you ever tried them, which I have a feeling you have, is that? Yeah? Okay, great. They stimulate really vast changes in our perception, just alter everything that we maybe once thought of as a certain particular way, gives us many different new ways to see them. It brings to the surface of our awareness the deep emotional potential that is residing in our psyche. It brings us to a point where we unveil that emotional potency and we interact with it on a surface and conscious level. When we take them, the onset is kind of marked with this rushing anxiety, where it's like kind of coming up and it's like a plane taking off. And you just kind of have to hold your center for long enough until you get there, and then you're at cruising altitude. And then you're flying through this atmosphere of like strong emotional honesty and just trying to navigate yourself through an environment that's now an elaborate projection of your emotional self, your emotional truth, whether you want to know it or whether it's the last thing you want to face at that time. And from this experience, there's potentially a lot to be gained. I mean, even if you don't try, you gain something. But with something with so much potential, when we learn to develop a relationship to it, a relationship of trust and respect and intention and intelligent choices, we can really start to harness the potentials that it has. We can really start to get from it the fullest it has to offer us in our personal journeys of whether it be spiritual growth, if you want to call that, or psycho-spiritual maturation, if you want to call it that, personal discovery and personal development. But even though, I'm looking out in a room of people that have all tried this beautiful, strange-looking, not-so-pleasant-tasting medicine, and So we're all kind of on the same page, but often these things are very overlooked. The psilocybin mushroom, this magical little friend that's been with us since potentially before we could talk to each other, you know, it's often overlooked because it's so commonplace. It becomes something simple, something that we forget the potential that it really has. We start to look to things that are much more foreign in our experience, like ayahuasca, which is a very powerful teacher, or iboga, which is a very powerful teacher, you know, or all sorts of different other chemicals or what have you that's available on the market at like an increasing rate, doing all sorts of weird stuff to us. But we seem to forget that these magical little mushrooms have something really honest and potent for us, and they become to be overlooked in that sense of this could be the plant or the medicine that really helps me develop that which I'm looking to achieve in my own personal journey of awakening to the truth of who I am, why I am who I am, the decisions that I make, and maybe what decisions I need to make to become the person I'd rather be. And the reason I feel mushrooms are very special for us specifically here is because we don't need to perpetuate a type of globalization to over-harvest ayahuasca to have it bring up here, or to support an ayahuasca tourism to go down there. I'm not downing that medicine at all, it's very powerful. But you don't necessarily need to go that direction if you're looking for something that could be right here and with us now. Because it grows like, I bet you if we went on a hunt, we might be able to find some tomorrow if it gets really sunny, you know? And I also feel that though it's helpful to have a guide, it's helpful to have someone to hold space for you, you don't need a shaman to take psilocybin. I mean, in the Mazatec tradition, which is the one that we have the most definitive evidence on towards historically using psilocybin mushrooms with the Psilocybe mexicana in Oaxaca, Mexico, in the Sierra Mazateca, we can see that they had shamans, but these shamans were mostly placeholders, people to be like, hey, I've been here, so you're going through that, and I could just look at you and be like, yeah, you're fine. It's okay, go deeper, and that's it. But we don't really need that. We don't necessarily need it, because we become our own shaman with a mushroom because it communicates with a deeper aspect of ourselves to bring up to the surface of our awareness whatever archetypal or personally subjective representations of our psychospiritual challenges might be at that time in our lives. So it becomes this powerful, self-guided, shamanic, psychedelic medicine for our personal growth. And in that, it becomes also a development or a tool for the development of our social groupings. Because when we change the way we relate with ourselves, we fundamentally change the way we relate with each other. So, my experience that really taught me, the value of magic mushrooms beyond stimulating amazing experiences, whether they be awesome, wow, or awesome, oh God, why, please no, is I went through a period of time in my life where I fell into very destructive and abusive drug abuse habits. And at a festival, I took too much LSD, and it showed me in like the rawest way possible exactly what those decisions were and where I was in my life. And it opened a door for me, which the mushrooms helped me heal. Over the course of a year, I dedicated myself to learning from this teacher for all the reasons that I said before, which is it's immediately available, I have familiarity with it, I don't necessarily need a guide, and I know that it's helping me in some way or another. And throughout this process, every month I'd sit by myself and take, a medium to a high dose and meditate and go through all the transcendent and cathartic kind of processes that brought me to a sense that after a year I felt as if maybe it didn't tell me what to do or where to go, but it showed me a little bit better where my choices came from and how I might be able to operate myself in a way that makes choices that bring me into the direction I'd rather be. And throughout that process, I also took a lot of notes and took a lot of time to consider what's happening and how is it happening to me and why is it doing this to me. And from that, I constructed sort of a philosophical construct to understand the psychology of this experience, the psychology of psilocybin, and how it's facilitating these energetic processes that we experience as psycho-emotional processes that lead to a type of what Neil Goldsmith calls psycho-spiritual maturation. or bringing to the conscious mind a deeper understanding of our true self, a self that is unencumbered by social conditioning and hard experiences and all sorts of other things that cloud us from who we truly could be. And so in the breakout sessions, what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the physiological effects of psilocybin mushrooms and the relation between those physiological effects and the experiential effects. And in the experiential effects, I'll talk about the psychology that I discussed, a language or tools, conceptual tools to operate yourself and understand the experience that you're going through in some way or another, or at least provide you tools to develop your own if you don't already have one. You know, talking about how the mushroom's a teacher, why it's a teacher, what it's teaching us, what I believe to be the 4 archetypal lessons that are being facilitated when you're taking psilocybin mushrooms, how to communicate with it directly the way that it's speaking to you, and how we can utilize the experience, the personal experience of using psilocybin mushrooms for our own personal growth and self-discovery to create a better world for everybody. Thanks.
Thanks.